As noted at the outset of this webcast, HUD has designated 24 metropolitan areas where use of small area FMRs is mandatory. In these areas, zip code-based small area FMRs must be used to determine payment standards rather than metropolitan area fair market rents or metro area FMRs. PHAs that directly administer HCV assistance, that is, execute HAP contracts, for families within the 24 designated metropolitan areas are known as designated small area FMR PHAs, or mandatory implementers. As designated small area FMR PHAs are expected to implement new small area FMRs determined by zip codes and, unless otherwise exempt, must begin immediate implementation of small area FMR payment standards. PHAs that believe they will be unable to implement the use of small area FMRs by April 1, 2018 should immediately contact their local HUD field office. In some cases, a mandatory implementer's jurisdiction may include both designated small area FMR areas and metro areas where the use of small area FMRs is not mandatory. For these PHAs, use of SAFMRs outside the designated small area FMR area is optional. If the PHA wishes to apply small area FMRs to these areas, they would need to follow the procedures for opt-in PHAs that we're about to discuss.
PHAs that are not required to adopt small area FMRs may voluntarily choose to do so by opting in with HUD approval. We call these PHAs opt-in small area FMR PHAs. When considering whether to opt in and apply small area FMRs, a PHA must compare the applicable small area FMRs and metro area FMRs. In making this comparison, the PHA should consider whether adoption of small area FMRs is likely to have an adverse effect on the availability of rental housing that is both affordable and available to tenants and applicants. Estimate the effect of small area FMR adoption on families currently under HAP contract, and consider whether to adopt the hold harmless or reduction in subsidy options. Identify any areas where the difference between the metro area FMR and the lower small area FMR is exactly 10%. In this case, opt-in will therefore trigger the need for rent reasonableness redeterminations. Consider whether to apply small area FMRs to its project-based voucher or PBV program, if applicable. We will discuss each of these considerations in greater detail later in this webcast. In addition, PHAs may want to assess the opportunities created by implementing small area FMRs, the adequacy of and potential impact on available budget resources, and the administrative resources and capacity. Refer to the Small Area FMR Guidebook for more information about these considerations. Rather than fully opting into small area FMRs, which would require a PHA to adopt small area FMRs for its entire HCV program, any PHA that is not required to adopt small area FMRs may use new authority granted under the final rule to set exception payment standards for selected zip codes in its jurisdiction based on applicable small area FMRs. PHAs selecting this option may establish an exception payment standard for individual zip code areas of up to and including 110% of the small area FMR determined by HUD for that zip code area. PHAs must notify HUD when adopting an exception payment standard based on the small area FMR, but HUD approval is not required.
Small area FMRs apply to all tenant-based vouchers, including special purpose vouchers such as Veterans Affairs Supportive Housing Program, commonly referred to as VASH, or VASH vouchers, and Family Unification Program vouchers, or FUP. All special housing types are subject to the small area FMR rule, including the Voucher Homeownership Program and manufactured home space rentals. Designated small area FMR PHAs and opt-in PHAs have the option of applying small area FMRs to project-based vouchers. We will review PBVs in more detail later in the webcast. Moving to work, or MTW agencies, located in designated small area FMR areas must use small area FMRs unless the agency already has an alternative payment standards policy in its HUD-approved annual MTW plan. An alternative payment standards policy is a policy that involves payment standards that an MTW agency may adopt following HUD approval in the annual MTW plan. For example, an MTW agency may adopt a policy establishing its own submarket-based payment standards, multi-tiered payment standards, or payment standards above the basic range. MTW PHAs in designated small area FMR areas should contact the MTW office to confirm their MTW requirement status, or if they wish to implement an alternative payment standards policy. Small area FMRs only apply to the Housing Choice Voucher Program. The final rule did not amend the regulations or change the way that FMRs are used in any other program. We recommend you reach out to the appropriate HUD office to inquire about the use of small area FMRs for any other program like home and HOPWA.
Small area FMRs are annual, zip code-based estimates of rent, including utilities, and are set by HUD for use in administering tenant-based assistance under the HCV program. To determine which metropolitan areas to designate for required use of small area FMRs, HUD applied the following selection criteria. 1. At least 2,500 HCVs are under lease in the metropolitan FMR area. 2. At least 20% of the standard quality rental stock within the metropolitan area is located in zip codes where the small area FMR is more than 110% of the metropolitan FMR area. 3. At least 25% of families with housing vouchers live in concentrated low-income areas. 4. Families with housing vouchers are at least 55% more likely than renters in general to live in concentrated low-income areas. And 5. The vacancy rate for the metropolitan area is greater than 4%. HUD has not reevaluated the selection criteria that were applied at the time the final rule was published. This is because HUD's designation of metro areas where implementation of small area FMRs is mandated is permanent, as stated in both the regulatory text and the preamble to the regulation. HUD plans to review new data and update the list of areas where implementation of small area FMRs is required every 5 years. The specific selection criteria used to identify the first round of designated small area FMR areas were specified in a separate Federal Register notice and may be updated by HUD in the future. Once an area has been designated as a small area FMR area, it remains so in perpetuity.